The time is at hand.
The elusive dog-like creature attacks livestock, bleeding them dry of blood.
8 to 10 feet tall, shadowy aliens.
But I am telling you right now,
we need a great reset.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen.
Welcome to In Dark Places. I'm your Huckleberry, Junebug Fugit. Well, it's August again. Didn't we just have an August, like 2 weeks ago? That means all the school janitors are busy working around the clock, pumping all the schools full of germs. You know, because kids always get sick on the first day of school. And what's that all about anyway? Kids get ripped off these days. When I was a kid, I went back to school the Tuesday after Labor Day. And for you non-Labor Day people out there, Labor Day is the first Monday of September. So we would go back to school then. We had like 3 months for summer vacation. These kids nowadays get ripped off. They get like 6 weeks. You gotta be kidding me. Mystery creature spotted in Chicago Pond by Tim Banal. Thanks, Tim. A visitor to a park in Chicago was left scratching his head at the sight of a rather sizable mystery creature that briefly emerged from a pond. According to a local media report, the unidentified animal was observed last week by an individual strolling around the city's Lincoln Park. The creature in question, seen swimming in the park's North Pond, was described by the witness as being around 4 to 6 feet in length and seemingly sporting a snout. Pictures of the puzzling animal caused something of a stir on social media, with many wondering if the oddity was an alligator. And if I find those pictures, I'll attach them somewhere. While such a scenario might sound unfathomable, it was not entirely out of the question, as an alligator was plucked from a pond in a different Chicago park back in 2022. That creature, delightfully dubbed Chance the Snapper, became something of a local sensation before being sent to Florida for his friendlier climate. Alas, those hoping that the mysterious animal seen in the Lincoln Park pond might be the proverbial second coming of the celebrity reptile from a couple years ago had their hopes dashed by the city's Department of Animal Care and Control. Public Information Officer Armando Tejada indicated that the department looked into the case after receiving multiple calls about the curious creature as word of the weird sighting spread online. The mystery ultimately turned out to be rather short-lived, as a herpetological society led to the determination that the animal was not an alligator. It was actually, for lack of a better term, a turtle surfing in the water, Tejada revealed, explaining that the animal had clamped onto a log and was using it as something of a makeshift flotation device as it cruised around the pond. And in other news, there's a picture of a supposed wolfman floating around online from Reddit that was supposedly captured on a trail cam in North Carolina. There's not a lot known about it, only that the picture is there. So I'll try to remember to attach that picture so you can check that out.
This is Mr. Haunted for In Dark Places, and this is this week's Cryptid Corner. What is a squonk? A squonk is Pennsylvania's quaint beast, and it cries over how ugly it is. And this is the saddest story ever. The squonk is not only said to be of distinctly low mentality, but also so ugly it's given to constant crying over its appearance. Everyone has felt self-conscious about the way they look at some point. The squonk, however, takes it to a whole nother level. According to the fearsome creatures of the Lumberwoods, with a few desert and mountain beasts, I guess that's a book from 1910, a kind of 20th century bestiary that accounted for America's most fantastical creatures, was the first to record the alleged existence of this creature from Pennsylvania folklore, one that's said to be fairly common in the hemlock forests of Pennsylvania. According to fearsome creatures, the squonk is a quaint beast with a very retiring disposition that typically comes out around twilight or dusk. Hunters looking to bag it supposedly have their best shot on frosty, moonlit nights. In all honesty, though, squonks don't seem to be all too hard to catch, whether the moon is out or not. They describe the squonk as slow, claims that it can only swim around in circles due to the webbing found just, and inconveniently for the squonk, between the toes of its left foot, and it is apparently of low mentality. But, above all else, with its misfitting skin, which is covered with warts and moles, the squonk is ugly. Or, as put a bit harshly by Fearsome Critters author Henry H. Tyron, probably the homeliest animal in the world, and he knows it. Now this is just sad now. Yes, unfortunately, for all its alleged dullness, the squonk appears to be painfully aware of just how repulsive it is. In fact, it's so painfully aware of its looks that Cox claims the poor thing is given to constant weeping over his really upsetting appearance and can sometimes be tracked by his tear-stained trail. It's why squonks are more easily captured when the moon is up, too. According to Tyron, apart from the tear-stained trail, they tend to lie still in their dens on clear nights for fear of traveling outside and catching a glimpse of themselves in the moonlit pond. Now this poor little fella, he's just sitting there crying because he feels he's so ugly, and... Okay. Listen to this one. There's accounts where individuals who have successfully captured the squonk check their sacks later, only to find that the creature had cried so hard it blubbered itself into a puddle. Even the great American legend Paul Bunyan had such a run-in with a squonk. Paul and his men were stalled in cutting timber when one hears a queer wailing some distance away. The more the man mimics the wailing, the closer the strange sound gets, until eventually he's able to apprehend the unsuspecting squonk in a bag. Squonks are said to call Pennsylvania hemlocks their homes. Going through all these accounts, it's hard not to feel bad for squonks who really seem to have gotten the fuzzy end of the lollipop as far as life goes. But before you start crying yourself, cheer up. Modern pop culture has given the squonk a somewhat heroic makeover. I want to hug this little squonk. Anyway, if you're wandering around the woods and run into a squonk, be sure to tell him how handsome this little fella is. And that's this week's Cryptid Corner.
That poor little squonk, he just needs a hug. Thanks, Jimmy. And now, here's the Nicolas Cage Meltdown of the Week.
Hey. Hey, stop! Stop it! Stop! What are you, animals? You want to be animals? Are we not men?
Been a while since we checked in with Nick. He's got like 6 more movies scheduled for release this year, though, so I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of him. And I just watched Nicolas Cage's new movie Long legs. It's got a lot of meltdowns in that one. Crazy movie. Pretty evil. Listener email corner. This email was sent in by my buddy Steve. He's an OG listener. Been listening since the first episode. We appreciate you, Steve. Steve saw a UFO in Belfry, Kentucky on August 2nd, 2024. It was way up in the sky like a jet, but something seemed off about it. It was just sitting still there. It was bright and shiny and wasn't moving. He didn't hear any noise. His wife came out the door and he turned around to tell her to look at it, and when he turned back it was gone, and there's no way it could have got away that fast. So thanks, Steve. Crazy sighting. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on here in these mountains, and I like it. The last bus to Fragrant Hills. China is well known for its creepy urban legends and superstitions. One of these legends tells the story of a young man who got on the last bus heading to Fragrant Hills in Beijing on November 14th, 1995. The man had just taken his seat when two men outside tried to flag down his bus. As these men were not waiting at a designated bus stop, the bus driver almost sped right past them. However, the conductor on board told the driver to stop, as this will be the last trip to Fragrant Hills for the night. To the bus passenger's surprise, there were actually three men, and they were wearing Qing Dynasty robes. One of the men had long tangled hair. The other passengers felt a little troubled because the men's faces were ghostly white, and they did not speak. However, the bus journey was uneventful, and eventually all the passengers disembarked apart from the mystery men, the young man and one old lady. Out of nowhere, the old lady started yelling at the young man, claiming that he had stolen her wallet. A terrible argument ensued, with the old lady insisting that they both got off the bus and go to the closest police station. The young man was livid as he got off the bus, seeing as how he would not get home and there was no police station in sight to clear up the misunderstanding. Just then, the old lady turned to him and said that the wind from the windows in the bus raised the robes of the mystery men, and she saw that they had no feet. This is why she insisted that the young man leave the bus with her. The following day, it became known that the bus, which was numbered 302, had gone missing right after the old lady and young man disembarked. It was found 3 days later, miles away from Fragrant Hills, inside a reservoir. Inside the bus were the bodies of the driver, the conductor, and one unidentified man with long tangled hair. Another version of the tale states that instead of three ghosts on the bus, it was just one female ghost in a red dress. Yet another version says that the gas tank on the bus was filled with blood, or that the bus was never found again. I guess it's according to who you talk to.
You know, sometimes you just need to hear some old Art Bell bumper music. This is folklore out of New Jersey. Local legend in Union County says 13 witches who were believed to be killing children in an area that is known as the historic Deserted Village. I guess also called Feltville. And these witches are buried beneath Johnston Drive, a stretch of road that runs from Watchung to Scotch Plains. This is to have happened in the late 1800s, and it's said that the road has been paved multiple times, and with every paving, the bumps mysteriously reappear. One local official claims that the bumps were intentionally placed in the road to keep horses and carriages from sliding down the hill. Other local residents feel otherwise, stating that the bumps keep reappearing. The legend continues that if you drive over the bumps and count them, and then say 13 witches, and turn around, You can see the witches following behind your car. What the heck?
I slipped and fell into the wet concrete below.
Kushtakas. A number of indigenous tribes along the Pacific North Coast believe in a shape-shifting creature called the Kushtaka, or land otter man. According to the Shaman and Tinglet tribes, the formidable trickster can transform into humans, otters, and wolves. They theorize that all land otters are aligned in some kind of mischievous conspiracy. Otters, they say, are transmogrifying humans into these semi-otter Kushtakas. Once turned, Kushtakas mimic the sounds of babies and children to lure their prey. Others stalk their target and shapeshift into a friend or family member. When a Kushtaka happens upon a lost human, it either takes their soul or turns them into a fellow Kushtaka. U.S. Navy Lieutenant George Thornton Emmons explored Tinglet culture. Based upon Emmons's work, the ethnologist and anthropologist Frederica de Laguna described the transformation thusly. The transformation was slowly accomplished. First, hair grew all over the body. Speech became confused. He began to walk on knees and elbows. A tail grew out, and in time he became more otter than human. There are a few ways to save the victim's soul. If quick enough, a skilled shaman can hunt down a missing tribe member and undo the spell. Sometimes these powerful elders entrance a Kushtaka and cut out his tongue. This is the source of the creature's power. Meanwhile, regular tribe members must rely upon dogs to protect themselves. Dogs see through the many guises of the Kushtaka, and their barking forces the shapeshifters to reveal their true form.
Now, I don't know if this is a repeat or not, but it's worth another listen. This is a frantic man calls 911 about a Bigfoot in his yard from Washington State in 1997.
Came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man, or something that looks like a man. I don't know what it was. Just it ran across the yard.
Okay. You've had problems in the neighborhood before?
Yeah, my dog was killed here just recently. I don't know what it was. Whatever it is, it's running. Couldn't catch it if I was going to chase it. So whatever it was, it was in and out. I'm out here, come through the window now, and I don't see anything. I don't want to go outside. Jesus Christ, you better... Deal!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
You see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right.
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he in your yard?
He's looking big.
Oh, his eye is on foot.
I don't know what, it's big, real big person, that's all I can say.
Okay, it is a person. What, person or an animal, or?
I can't tell, all I know is my...
I'm going to stop this right here. I know these 911 operators are trained and they try to keep you on the line, try to get as much information as possible. I understand that. But she said, is this thing on foot? I immediately picture, what is she thinking? Is he possibly on a bicycle? Is he driving a car? Is he on a pogo stick? I just think there might be more important questions than is he on foot? Was he swimming through the backyard? I don't know. But hope you enjoyed that.
Maybe he was just kind of levitating, doing some Chris Angel stuff out in the yard. This is The Old Stinker by Sam George. Thanks, Sam. The werewolf Old Stinker, also known as the Beast of Bramston Drain, is not a recent phenomenon. It was first reported in the 18th century, but these sightings, concentrated around the town of Hull, are especially intriguing considering that English folklore is rather barren of werewolf stories. Most wolves were extirpated from England under the Anglo-Saxon kings, and so ceased to be an object of dread to the people, though wolves did in fact survive in the UK up until the 1500s. So what could be behind these new werewolf sightings? In literature, accounts of lycanthropy, humans transforming into werewolves, can be traced back to the Epic of Gilgamesh in 2100 BC, whereas wolf fables began with Aesop's The Boy Who Cried Wolf, which was written at some point between 620 and 520 BC. Voluntary lycanthropy does appear from time to time. Virgil's eclogues are thought to be such an account, from 42 to 39 BC, but becoming a werewolf is more commonly seen as a curse or a sign of bestiality, or at worst, of cannibalism. Most people have heard of witchcraft trials, but werewolf trials are less well known, and those who were executed in werewolf trials in the 16th and 17th century France were believed to have a taste for human flesh. But these cannibalistic fears died down with the rise of psychoanalysis in the 19th century, when lycanthropy came to more commonly represent the beast within, or everything animal that we have repressed in terms of our human nature. History then provides us with two possible answers as to why people might think they've spotted werewolves in the English countryside. The first is the fear of violence, manifesting in anxieties around cannibalism. The second is a return of the repressed, perhaps the population of Hull, are having a particularly Freudian spell. It is important to consider the werewolf as the specter brother or shadow self of the wolf, and to perceive the history of lycanthropy as being inextricably bound up with humankind's treatment of wolves. For example, the case of Peter Stumpf, who was executed in Germany for being a werewolf in 1589, gained so much notoriety in 16th century Britain. It is notable that this interest corresponds with the extinction of the wolf in England in the 1500s. Back to modern times, in 2015, the Open Graves Open Mind Project hosted the first international conference on werewolves at the University of Hertfordshire. This research drew attention to attempts to rewild the wolf in the UK, and scholars began to question what would happen if wolves returned to our forests, as was prominent in associated media reports. Our collaborations with the UK Wolf Trust generated further discussions around the possibility of rewilding large species in Britain, including wolves and lynx. It is in this climate that new sightings of the Hull werewolf had begun to appear. In July of 2016, newspapers reported that Old Stinker was terrorizing women with his human face and very, very bad breath, hence his name. The two most recent sightings were reported in August. Women met 8-foot-tall werewolf with human face, proclaimed the Metro newspaper. A full-scale werewolf hunt ensued after Old Stinker was spotted prowling in an industrial estate. The werewolf had apparently eaten a German Shepherd dog and was seen leaping over fences like a modern-day Spring-Heeled Jack, the folk devil that plagued Victorian London. Importantly, Old Stinker supposedly inhabits a landscape that is thought to have seen some of the last UK wolves, so the emergence of the Hull werewolf can reopen debates about the spectre werewolf's relationship to the flesh and blood wolf. This coincides with a phrase of severe environmental damage. It has not taken the form of sudden catastrophe, but rather a slow grinding away of species. The result is a landscape constituted more actively by what is missing than by what is present. A spectred, rather than a spectred owl, he represents not only a nation's belief in him as a supernatural shapeshifter, but its collective guilt at the extinction of an entire indigenous species of wolf. The Old Stinker story tells us that belief in werewolves lives on beyond the actual lives of the wolves that were thought to inspire them. Rather than being dismissed as a rather fishy tale, Old Stinker can activate the wolf warrior in all of us and allow us to lament the last wolves that ran free in English forests. Far from being a curse, he is a gift. He can initiate rewilding debates and redeem the big bad wolf that filled our childhood nightmares, reminding us that it is often humans, not wolves or the supernatural, that we should be afraid of.
I found this story naturally in the wild on a friend of a friend's page. In 1996, when I was little, I saw Bigfoot. I was in upstate New York, and I'm talking moonshine country, in the middle of nowhere. We were staying at my family's cabin. Me and my cousin were out back catching frogs and putting them in a bucket, and I had stopped to eat lunch. Next thing we know, we see this big, hairy guy staring at us from the woods. My cousin froze, and me being little, I thought it was a gorilla. He took a step towards us, and I threw my sandwich at him. I remember him looking like he was sick. He took my sandwich. I threw him my cousin's sandwich, which he also took, and walked off into the woods and disappeared out of sight. We ran inside, and I told my dad and uncle, who then locked the door behind us and said, "You just saw the hairy man, and you're lucky he didn't take you. He likes to play with kids." I've been a believer ever since. The sandwich-taking Bigfoot. Gonna put it on you. And hold on to your sandwiches, kids.
The Ship of Death. In the fall of 1862, a United States Army Indian scout named Leon Weber stood at the edge of the North Platte River in Wyoming. The animal trapper was building a log cabin 6 miles away from Fort Loramie military outpost. Suddenly, a thick fog rolled across the river. The fog began to take shape, gradually transforming into an ancient ship. The forest-covered sails glistened in the evening light. Weber was transfixed. There on the deck, the phantom crewman surrounded a lifeless young woman. A horrifying realization dawned upon the trapper. The ship suddenly veered over to my side of the river, and I recognized the corpse of Margaret Stanley, my best girlfriend. We were to have been married early in the following spring. "Margie," I shouted, preparing to descend to the water. As Weber plunged into the misty waters, the ship vanished. He remained at the river until dusk, patiently waiting for any signs of Margaret. But the ship never returned. Weber made his way back to the Stanley residence a month later to discover that his beloved had died. Using reports from the Cheyenne Bureau of Psychological Research, the Paranormal Investigation magazine, Fate established that the ship was sighted on 2 other occasions. A local rancher claims he saw the ship resurface near the town of Casper in 1887. At the behest of the vessel's captain, the crewman revealed the corpse of the rancher's wife, her face disfigured and burned. The rancher returned home to find the scorched remains of his wife. She died while attempting to flee a house fire. The final sighting occurred in 1903. Victor Hebe recalls seeing a dead man aboard the ship. As the body swayed to and fro the rocking of the ship, it turned so that I gazed directly into the face. It was the blackened face of my dearest friend. It turned out that Hebe's friend was Thomas Horn. A Cheyenne court had convicted Horn of murder and sentenced him to hang. Unbeknownst to Hebe, Horn was hanged in a prison courtyard on the very same day of the ghostly premonition. The Dark Watchers. Legend tells of shadowy figures that stalk the Santa Lucia Mountains of Monterey County, California. Spanish conquistadors who first explored the region in 1602 referred to these otherworldly creatures as the Dark Watchers. The late Thomas Steinbeck, son of the famous writer John Steinbeck, spoke about the Dark Watchers at length. He eventually confided in his friend, artist Benjamin Brode. The particulars of the account had been told to Thomas as a child and authenticated by such credible sources as his grandmother, Olive Hamilton, and Billy Post, descendant of El Sur Grande ranchers. Brode claimed Thomas's fascination with the Dark Watchers ran in the family. John Steinbeck mentioned the mysterious entities in the Long Valley, a collection of short stories published in 1938. Flight tells the tale of Pepe, a young teen who goes on the run after stabbing a local townsman. Pepe encounters the Watchers while fleeing to the mountains. From the tale, no one knew who the Watchers were, nor where they lived, but it was better to ignore them and never show interest in them. They did not bother one who stayed on the trail and minded his own business. John Steinbeck raised Thomas while working as a ranch hand in the mountain region of Big Sur. The writer's understanding of the Dark Watchers mirrored that of local tales. The humanoid figures usually surface either in the mornings or evenings, and they immediately disappear like fog when somebody looks directly at them. Thomas made contact with local residents Billy and Lucy Post, descendants of El Sur Grande researchers. Post claims the ranchers exhumed the remains of a young girl in the 20s. After the grave's desecration, the Dark Watchers disappeared, and the locals were struck by misfortune. According to the Post family, luck was only restored after the ranchers returned the girl to her original resting place. Well, we are woefully out of time on the show this week, and we appreciate you listening. Thanks as always, Jimmy Haunted. We'll see you again right here next week. God bless you. Modern times. In 2015, the Open Graves Open Mind Project hosted the first international conference on werewolves at the University of Hertfordshire. Hertfordshire. Thank goodness. Hertfordshire. That's not shower, okay? Shire. Hertfordshire. This research drew attention to attempts. This research